Hey there and welcome back to another Win or Lose video. And today we're going to be talking about episode 2, Blue, which follows the story of the umpire of the local softball league in the lead up to the championship game. Last time we were watching through this sequence following the character of Laurie, the daughter of the coach. And so now we're swapping over to Blue, or Frankie, starting a week before the game. Before we actually go any further into the episode, I do want to say this is probably my favourite of the 2 episodes that have come out so far. The first one was funny and well written. Don't get me wrong, but this is one that well and truly hooked me and got me invested in the show, to the point that when the episode ended, I was actually sad we'd be moving away from this character. I think they did say that some of the characters would be getting a second episode though, so that's good, because his story doesn't feel finished. It feels incomplete and like it needs some closure to round out the arc. If it is finished, then it's just a massively depressing buzzkill ending, but we'll get to that. Okay, so we come into the life of Blue during the penultimate game. I think it's fair to say that he takes his role as the umpire of the match very seriously. He cleans off the home base plate before the match with a little brush, and then we get a compilation of him being very invested in the game, screaming out his calls, doing power poses to go along with them, sprinting out into the field so he's ready to see if runners make it to their bases, doing combat rolls, removing his helmet so he can get the best look at things possible. He even has a slow motion replay in his head to be able to determine if somebody's out or not on the home plate. Dude's a living VAR. I tell you what, I wish all youth sports leagues had people as enthusiastic about their role as this. In my experience, they're more like the other guy out in the field, not really caring or paying much attention. So he calls the final runner out, which means that the Pickles win the match. In a funny scene that feels very true to life, the parents of the losing team go absolutely mental when their children lose and start screaming abuse at this guy, which is visualized as sort of laser beam things. So the stylistic choice they go with this episode is sort of like a video game. That's how he lives his life, as if he's the protagonist of a fantasy game. He gets a shield and a suit of armor that I suppose is supposed to represent his thick skin, his outer shell that protects him from the world. When he's comfortable in the episode and feels safe and secure, that armor goes away. But when he feels under attack or emotionally vulnerable or needs to protect himself and keep his guard up, the armor suddenly returns. I like that it served as a bit of a visual cue for his insecurity, even when he's putting up that stoic facade. Him leaving the game is honestly so funny as well. He refuses to shake his friend's hand or really acknowledge anybody from the Pickles team, even though he knows them, because he doesn't want his integrity as an umpire called into question. He refuses a free pretzel from the lady at the kiosk because he thinks it would be like accepting a bribe. And then he has to avoid a woman who dons a balaclava and a baseball bat with nails hammered through it, who's screaming that she hopes he never finds human love. Yeesh. So she just casually had that stuff ready to go to get him. Guess this is not her first time doing something like this. I also loved the unnecessary rolling and posing he was doing. Really does tie into the visual style of being a character from a video game or a young adult fantasy novel or something like that, because they're always doing things like that because the creator thinks it makes them look cool, which it doesn't really. It's kind of cringy. Then the scene cuts to him arriving at his house, where we see that his car's been egged by the angry parents. Once again, did they bring all of this stuff to the game just in case they needed to teach the umpire a lesson? What a life. So like I said, this opening segment indicates that he's loving his life. He's a very enthusiastic softball umpire. He seems to enjoy himself when he's at home, happily making himself dinner, eating it whilst he's reading a book, and staring lovingly out at his partner. Except then she fades away, and he's all alone and sad. Tragic. We cut over to his workday to learn that he's a teacher, and not just any teacher, but it seems he teaches a bunch of the kids that play on the Pickles softball team. He takes his role as teacher just as seriously as he takes his role as an umpire. Tell you what, I wish I had a teacher that cared this much when I was in school. Going around the class, handing out pencils when you need a fresh one. Instantly shutting up the person who's making their damn chair squeak or any other number of annoying noises. He even woke somebody up when they fell asleep and prevented them from missing out on the test completely. Although I gotta say, it's a 20-minute test. 20 minutes! How you falling asleep so quick? Insane. For some reason, despite having a teacher who's super aware and constantly surveilling what's going on, 2 kids try to cheat by passing an answer sheet. Ugh. Yeah, I've been there though. Although I was never caught by the teacher cheating. These girls are such amateurs. After class, he confronts the kids, and I'm pretty sure these 2 are Rochelle and Kai, both from the softball team. Rochelle tries to smooth talk him at first, calling him by his first name and acting really familiar, but he shuts that down and gives them a 0, a detention, and also says he's going to be contacting their parents. Kai storms out whilst Rochelle remains behind to try to weasel her way out of it. But of course, she doesn't succeed. A bunch of other teachers then burst in and invite Frank out for tacos, only for him to make eye contact with that woman from his daydream earlier. Okay, so I guess she's an ex-girlfriend, and it didn't end well judging by all their reactions. Also, I was surprised to see that Rochelle even had a reaction to her arrival. So do you reckon that she knows this guy outside of school? After all, she is acting pretty familiar with him. She's constantly trying to call him Frankie. She seems to know about the deeper details of his relationship with Ms. Park. And on top of that, she steals his food. Plus, she was talking to him at the game earlier in the episode. It feels like more than just your average cheeky student. Here we learn about what happened. At first, when I saw the daydream earlier in the episode, I was pretty sure it was going to be either that she died, or she left him and he's lonely. But nope, turns out he played the game of self-sabotage, and despite having a very loving and fulfilling relationship with this woman, he had commitment issues, and so when she asked him whether he'd be interested in getting married at some point, he panicked and dumped her instantly. Oh, yikes. I think it's a testament to how good the writing was for his character that you don't instantly get turned off by him at this point. I think they presented him as dorky and funny enough that he became endearing, so you could look past the fact that he really did sabotage his own life and bring the drama down on his own head. He's living in a world of his own making. Things then get even more crazy, as if from nowhere, the janitor appears, and of course, he has a German accent. A very camp one. I don't know why, but nothing tickles me quite like a camp German character. This scene had me in tears, really. It came out of left field and was just so ridiculous and hilarious. Anyway, the janitor seemingly has Frank's best interests at heart and wants him to be able to move on with his life. And so he downloads him a dating app and tells him how to use it so he can get out there and fix, I quote, his very broken life. Oof, tough love. He's then banished during the course of this crash course because he just can't believe that Frank's only 32. Yeah, fair enough. He really does look like he's a 40-plus character, doesn't he? Next up, we had a scene that made me want to smash my head onto the desk until I could no longer comprehend what was happening. So the crux of the scene is that Frank is fantasizing about his ex in the middle of the coffee shop, which makes him realize he's lonely. This is his regular coffee haunt, and his regular barista is quite nice to him. So what does he do? He becomes the typical cringy man that thinks any woman being slightly nice to you suggests she's interested in you romantically. So he crashes and burns, she feels awkward, he feels awkward, and I feel awkward. Perfect visualization of the absolute cringe that comes with watching somebody get shot down for a date. Absolutely brutal. And I resent that Pixar forced me to sit through that for like 2 minutes. When he gets home, he can still feel the absence of his ex, and so he decides to jump on that dating app to see what can happen for him. I really loved the style they went for this. They really lean hard on the video game vibes for his online adventures in the dating world, but in a different way to what we've seen before with the Armor. This is more referencing those endless runner games like Temple Run, and then classic platformers like Mario, and even games like Pokemon with the dating app conversation resembling Pokemon battles. I just thought this was really clever and showed a lot of thought and care had been put into the design choices. I liked that at first he was really reluctant to use the app and hid away in his house with the curtains drawn and the lights off. It really managed to capture that feeling of embarrassment and shame that comes along with online dating. Even as more and more people are starting to use it, it does feel like there's a massive stigma against it. So he gets his match and immediately crashes and burns. She asks him what he's doing this weekend, to which anybody with any sort of social ability feels like is the setup to lead to a date and ask if he's free. Instead, he straight up says he's hugely busy, which means she's not going to bother wasting her time with this guy, and he gets ghosted. Oof. It felt real though, very realistic, because a lot of people really are that clueless. This rejection leads to his buddy taking a look at his profile, scoffing, and asking him if he's even trying anymore. This gives us another flashback that shows that he just randomly dumped his ex out of the blue because of that commitment issue, with him getting defensive and her trying to fight for the relationship, but he was done. He really does seem like a nice guy, but my god, he brought this whole issue down on himself. But yet, he still remains sympathetic. So well done. However, this defensiveness and failure to open up previously spurs him on to do so in the cyber world, and so he changes up his profile to be more true to who he is instead of hiding and being ashamed of himself. This leads to him finding a connection with a new woman who seemingly accepts him for who he is and shares a lot of the same interests. It feels like it could lead to something more, something real. This whole sequence was so fun, by the way. I really just love the visual choices that were made here. It felt so different, so unique. As he's working up the courage to ask her out to get spaghetti or something, look who it is! His ex-girlfriend Monica, who wants to talk to him about something. I'll be honest, even though it wouldn't have made any sense, I did think for a time that he was going to match with his ex, but not realize it was her and thus they'd reconnect. Like I said, I know I wouldn't make any sense, as he should recognize what she looks like, and at the same time, I forgot that he's meant to be crying at the championship game, so it all goes badly. Damn episode manipulating me. It really did feel like that maybe she wanted to try again, and so suddenly, the episode has you feeling conflicted. It's very clever writing. This episode's so deep, and so different to the previous one that it feels like a completely different show in a way. By the end of this episode, I'd forgotten that Laurie even existed. Sadly, their attempted conversation, which would have given Frank some closure and prevented him breaking off his conversation with that other lady, is ended by the arrival of the parent for the parent-teacher conference. Only one parent as well. Maybe the other one's going to be addressed in Kai's episode? Maybe they just had 2 different times scheduled? Either way, This part pissed me off. This lady is one of those parents that solely believes her kid and bullies her way into Rochelle having no consequences for cheating, whilst Frank's over there having a minor mental breakdown about how he maybe made a mistake breaking up with Monica. So Rochelle gets away with no consequences and even gets an apology, whilst Frank breaks up with his online girlfriend. Ugh. Not even his girlfriend, just the person he was talking to. And the episode manipulates you so cleverly once more. You see him charge off to find Monica so he can rekindle what he's lost. And along the way, he starts taking off pieces of his armor. He's lowering his guard and opening himself up again. It's actually really hype and exciting. And like I said, the way the episode is framed makes you forget that we're heading towards a heartbreak. They give him epic music. They have his buddy help him out. People are cheering for him in the halls. It has all the hallmarks of a success. He's gonna get the girl. He's the glorious hero from one of his books. But then that penny drops. She's moved on. We have no timeline for this either. How long ago did they break up? It's implied to be not that long ago if current students remember them being together, but at the same time now she's engaged? Is it a whirlwind romance, or has this been going a long time? Guess we'll find out later. So he's sad, then we cut to the game, where he's barely holding it together. Also, I loved seeing Laurie's hit from a different POV. In her episode, it was framed as her intentionally getting hit as some epic sacrifice moment, but here it just looks like she got drilled in the head and got KO'd instantly. Rather funny, really. Man, this episode was great. Went from funny to melancholy to funny to devastatingly sad so quickly. And it all fit together perfectly. It was such a rich look at his character, and it was only 20 minutes long. You could make a film about this guy and I'd watch it. I just came away from it wanting so much more. More Frank. I need to know how this ends for him. Does he get his happy ending? Or is his story supposed to be bittersweet? I guess we'll have to wait and see. And so with all that being said, that's the end of the episode, and these have all been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of this episode? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.